Kiyoshi just wanted to see a little skin. Instead, he ends up in solitary confinement at school. After a failed peeping mission, he and four other socially starved boys get thrown into a secret underground prison run by the most terrifying thing imaginable, the Underground Student Council. Think less hall monitors, more leather-clad warlords with abs. Now it's sweat, punishments, and psychological warfare, all before midterms. And for Kiyoshi, escaping this prison might be easier than surviving it, with his dignity intact. It all begins on what seems like a regular school day. 5 guys, including Kiyoshi, had just transferred into what used to be an all-girls school. Now, they were the only boys there. Naturally, they were total outsiders, socially awkward, full of hopes, and drowning in daydreams about maybe, just maybe, talking to a girl without panicking. Tired of living the background life, Kiyoshi announces he's finally going to try talking to someone. His buddies freak out, but he marches ahead. Problem is, the second he gets close to a group of girls, his brain just shuts down. He's frozen, staring, completely blank. Before he can even say hi, another girl swoops in and pulls the others away, dropping a cold comment about how obvious his inexperience is. Just like that, game over before it even started. His friends burst out laughing while the girl warns everyone that the Underground Student Council has eyes everywhere, and getting too friendly with boys can bring big trouble. Later in class, Kiyoshi drops his eraser. As he reaches down to grab it, he locks eyes with a girl named Chiyo. She notices the sumo wrestler print on his eraser and throws out a playful comment, making Kiyoshi feel extra awkward. But then, during lunch, something unexpected happens. Chiyo walks up and asks if he's into sumo wrestling. His face lights up, and the two instantly hit it off. While the other guys sit around wondering where he disappeared to, Kiyoshi is deep in conversation, smiling for what feels like the first time in forever. By the end of it, they've even made plans to watch a sumo match together. Things are finally looking up. Back at the dorm, the boys start tossing around a bold idea, sneaking a peek at the girls' bath. Kiyoshi isn't really sold on it, feeling weird about the whole thing, but the guys are relentless, hyping it up like it's the biggest mission of their lives. Eventually, Kiyoshi caves. They suit up in way too tight ninja outfits and sneak off toward the bathhouse. Operation Chaos has officially begun. Mid-mission, Gakuto casually drops the bomb that the girls inside are from Kiyoshi's class, including Chiyo. Panic hits. Kiyoshi spirals, but they're already on the rooftop trying to find a way in. When things start to fall apart, Gakuto whips out a phone and suggests using it like a spy cam. Just then, Kiyoshi sees Chiyo walking away from the bath and, weirdly, doubles down. He volunteers to lower the phone himself. But when Gakuto mentions that it's actually Kiyoshi's phone, he fumbles, freaks out, and drops it straight through the window. Cue meltdown. The boys lose it. Even though Kiyoshi is furious, they beg him to climb in and grab it. He nervously slides through the window like a clumsy action hero and reaches for the phone, but freezes when he spots Chiyo right behind him. From outside, the boys say their silent goodbyes, assuming it's game over for their friend. But plot twist, Chiyo calls him by someone else's name. Turns out she's super nearsighted and can't even recognize him. Mission back on. And then things get weirder. Thinking he's her friend, she strips down and tells her to join in. Stunned but rolling with it, Kiyoshi follows along while his friends stare in total disbelief. Chiyo takes him toward the bath, aka paradise, and the other guys, not wanting to miss out, strip too and try to follow. But just as they're making their move, a swarm of angry crows dive bombs them. Out of the shadows, 2 intimidating girls appear, eyes sharp and furious, like villains straight out of a comic book. Game over. Meanwhile, Kiyoshi was quietly soaking in the bath with the girls, trying not to make a sound. When Chiyo's friend walked in, she gave him a good look and suddenly realized something was off. This wasn't who she thought it was. She started questioning him, suspicious and sharp. Just as Kiyoshi was about to be found out, someone shouted that there were boys spying nearby. Instant chaos. The girls charged out like a stampede and caught the boys mid-peak, dragging them out like crooks. Then came Mako, the towering, no-nonsense vice president, asking where the 5th boy was. Gakuto stayed silent, refusing to betray Kiyoshi. His reward? A direct strike to the groin. Kiyoshi, still hidden, watched the entire mess go down, frozen in shock. Out of nowhere, A girl snuck up behind him and whispered that the boys were now facing the wrath of the underground student council. She showed him a photo album, flipping through the intimidating faces. First was Hana, the seemingly sweet but deadly secretary. Next came Mako, the towering powerhouse and vice president. Then when Kiyoshi nervously asked about the president, she turned the page to reveal Mari, the one pulling all the strings, the real deal. Kiyoshi didn't even need to hear more. He was toast. Before he could plan his next move, he was caught and tossed in with his busted-up friends. His heart sank as he noticed Chiyo watching the disaster unfold. The next morning, the underground student council handed down their sentence: 1 month in the school's prison. Any attempt to escape meant an extra month added. To top it off, the boys had to build the prison themselves. When Gakuto tried to speak up, Mako shut him down immediately with a slap that sent him flying. All day, she didn't hold back, tossing the boys around like ragdolls. Whenever they tried to resist, Mako and her squad twisted them into awkward, painful shapes. By the way, if you're enjoying the chaos so far, feel free to drop a sub. No council pressure, totally voluntary, unlike Kiyoshi's prison time. Joe even coughed up blood at one point. When Mako asked what was wrong, Joe, half out of it, muttered something ridiculous, which earned him another rough hit. Andre, trying to protect his buddy, stepped in, only to be ordered to lick Mako's boots. Just when it looked like he might actually do it, Kiyoshi stepped in and stopped it. Mako backed off, and for once Andre was spared. Later, Andre pulled Kiyoshi aside, visibly bothered. But before Kiyoshi could ask anything, the rest of the group jumped in, telling him to stay out of it. According to them, Andre had no reason to complain. Getting dominated by someone like Mako was the dream, wasn't it? Kiyoshi felt cornered. By the next day, even he had started reacting the same way, no longer resisting, but kind of leaning into it. Before long, all of them were lined up, practically hoping Mako would scold them with her presence. But Mari wasn't fooled. To crank up the pressure, she brought in backup. Hana, the secretary. At first, Hana seemed innocent enough, giving the boys a simple task: find her some 4-leaf clovers. But the moment she caught them sneaking glances at the girls doing gymnastics, she snapped. Shingo tried to deny it. Hana beat the truth out of him. Eventually, they gathered the clovers, but Hana spotted one with just 3 leaves mixed in. Another beating followed, quick and merciless. This time, it wasn't even remotely enjoyable, especially since Hana wore lightning bolt shorts under her skirt, which instantly shattered any illusions the boys might have had. She gave them one more chance to collect proper clovers. While searching, Kiyoshi found a baby bird that had fallen from its nest. He carefully climbed a tree and placed it back. From up there, he noticed Chiyo in a nearby room. She looked out and smiled to herself, thinking that a guy who loved sumo wrestling couldn't be all that bad. She gently asked Kiyoshi if he was involved in the bathhouse incident. Kiyoshi wanted to come clean, but instead, he promised her they'd still watch sumo wrestling together, no matter how long he was stuck in school jail. Back on the ground, the boys finally found one proper 4-leaf clover. But after Hana threatened a painful punishment if they messed up again, they nervously started saying that the real 4-leaf clover was the friendship we made along the way. That cheesy line bought them another round of beatings. Meanwhile, Hana wandered under the tree where Kiyoshi was hiding. Thinking she was alone, she pulled down her shorts and began to relieve herself. At that exact moment, a crow swooped across Kiyoshi's face, spooking him into losing his balance. He fell, crashing right in front of Hana. She screamed loud enough to shake the whole building. Mako rushed in, demanding an explanation. But Hana, bright red and furious, told Kiyoshi to keep his mouth shut. No excuses were heard. Mako just hauled all the boys back to their cell. Back in their makeshift prison, the boys treated Kiyoshi like a hero for making Hana cry, but he didn't feel like celebrating. He could only think about Chiyo and the promise he had made. Elsewhere, Mari was talking with her father, Kurihara, the headmaster. Unlike his daughter, Kurihara seemed to understand what the boys were going through and even showed sympathy. But Mari didn't budge. She had no intention of letting the boys off easy. Rules were rules, and being male wasn't going to save them. After a bit of back and forth, Kurihara finally gave in to his daughter Mari's logic. But he did push for one small favor. The boys would be granted weekends off from their prison sentence. Later, while Mako kept a strict eye on the group, Mari showed up with an official announcement. If the boys behaved like real model inmates, they'd be rewarded with 3 hours of freedom every weekend. Hearing this, the boys lit up like it was a national holiday. Kiyoshi especially saw it as his golden opportunity to finally meet Chio outside the barbed wire school life. But just as he was about to celebrate, Joe tackled him to the ground. Confused and mildly concerned, Kiyoshi asked what that was about. Joe, looking deadly serious, explained that Kiyoshi almost crushed his precious colony of pet ants, his closest companions. Mako rolled her eyes and ordered Joe back to work before things got any weirder. Meanwhile, Mari headed over to check on her father, but he wasn't in his office. Instead, she caught a glimpse of something playing on his computer screen, a very special anime clip from a shady website. Disgusted, she stormed off, fire in her eyes. Back in the yard, she spotted the boys taking a casual break and immediately snapped, warning them that slacking off could cost them their precious weekend privileges. Kiyoshi tried reasoning with Mako, but she wasn't in the mood. She slammed him down without hesitation. Lying on the ground, Kiyoshi realized that if he wanted that date with Chio to happen, he'd need to escape, old school style. Like digging a tunnel while no one's looking style. The next day, during chores, Kiyoshi quickly volunteered for trash duty. Once he got to the garbage shed, he checked his surroundings, then started digging like a man on a mission. While catching his breath at the shed's entrance, he spotted Chio nearby. She was trying to pass along a message but got flustered, finally scribbling out a note with the time and place for their long-awaited date. Kiyoshi was practically bouncing with excitement, but when he returned, he saw Gakuto taking a serious beatdown from Mako, all because of something Kiyoshi had messed up. Guilt hit hard. Kiyoshi tried apologizing, but Gakuto brushed it off, acting like it was nothing. Later, Gakuto handed him Chio's note with a sly look. He knew everything about the tunnel, and from that point on, he started acting extra strange. Sneaking up on Kiyoshi, pretending to be a sumo wrestler, striking weird poses, even in the showers. Kiyoshi grew increasingly paranoid, convinced Gakuto was about to snitch. Then one day, while Kiyoshi was back at the tunnel, Hana suddenly showed up. She cornered him and accused him of leaking details about the bathhouse fiasco. Kiyoshi swore he hadn't told anyone. But Hana wasn't convinced. She gave him an outrageous demand to prove his loyalty by doing something incredibly uncomfortable right in front of her. Kiyoshi tried to reason with her, but Hana threatened to destroy his escape tunnel if he refused. Backed into a corner, he reluctantly agreed. As the moment neared and Hana crouched in front of him, Kiyoshi braced for the most awkward situation of his life. Just then, boom! Gakuto barged into the shed, looking for him. Hana stormed out in a flash. Kiyoshi, still in shock, now realized the clock was ticking. He had to act fast before Gakuto blew the whistle. To his surprise, Gakuto didn't rat him out. Instead, he offered to help with the escape. Meanwhile, in the main building, Mari was unwinding in the shower when Mako joined her, everything on full display, offering to scrub her back. Mari sighed and unloaded her frustrations, saying how risky it was to give the boys any taste of freedom. As Mari headed home later, she bumped into her dad. A book dropped from his sleeve, and when she picked it up, she discovered it was filled with, let's just say, armor-free illustrations. Already stressed, this discovery pushed her anger into overdrive, fueling her resolve to come down even harder on the boys. Back at the prison yard, Kiyoshi and Gakuto were playing a relaxed game of tic-tac-toe. But it was actually cover for something much bigger, their escape plan. Gakuto explained that with only 3 hours of free time, Kiyoshi's date wouldn't last long. Kiyoshi looked defeated. That's when Gakuto showed his hidden ace, a rough map of the school disguised inside the game grid. His strategy? Cause a big enough distraction so Kiyoshi could slip out unnoticed. But there was a catch. Gakuto would only help if Kiyoshi agreed to buy him a rare, super-limited anime figure. Priorities. The next day, during another trash run, Gakuto popped up, fuming that Kiyoshi kept getting him into trouble. The two started bickering until Hana swooped in and landed a spinning kick so strong it completely flattened the garbage shed. She immediately pinned the blame on both of them. Miko arrived soon after, and without wasting a second, handed down punishment. The boys cried out in agony, their dignity in shambles. A rough sight for anyone to witness, except perhaps someone with very strange taste in fantasies. After the scolding, Mako ordered Kiyoshi and Gakuto to rebuild the shed, just the two of them. While they pretended to grumble, both were secretly thrilled. This meant full access to guard their escape tunnel without interruption. At least that was the plan, until Hana plopped down nearby, announcing she'd be supervising their work. And just like before, Hana called Kiyoshi over with a strange demand. She wanted him to pee in front of her again to prove he was still loyal. Kiyoshi flat out refused. So naturally, Hana handed him a cup of tea, designed to speed things up. Kiyoshi, now panicking, rushed back to Gakuto, who proudly announced that he had a genius plan to deal with Hana. His idea? Use his divine words to mentally overwhelm her. Despite Kiyoshi's concern, Gakuto hyped himself up and strode toward Hana like some kind of motivational speaker. He barely made it through a sentence before Hana shut him down with a punch to the gut that knocked the wind out of him. Limping back in defeat, Gakuto dramatically declared that Kiyoshi really did need to pee, right in front of Hana. Horrified, Kiyoshi begged him to be quiet, but it was already too late. Hana, grinning, gave him permission to use the bathroom. With one catch, she'd be going with him. Kiyoshi sprinted into the nearest stall and locked the door. But Hana wasn't giving up. She leapt over the stall wall like a ninja and landed inside, determined to supervise the moment herself. Kiyoshi froze, unable to move. Hana gave him a sharp order to stay still, but then, thanks to a mix of bad luck and pure anime timing, Hana slipped just as Kiyoshi's pants dropped. What happened next was something no one would ever forget. Over near the water cooler, Mako was sipping from a cup when a high-pitched scream shattered the silence. She rushed over to find Hana lying in the stall, soaked from head to toe in what could only be described as a golden catastrophe. Without wasting a second, Kiyoshi took off like he was escaping from a maximum security prison. Later that day, Mako gathered the boys and announced that Hana was officially out of commission for the time being. Gakuto, wearing the smuggest grin, congratulated Kiyoshi on whatever absurd miracle he had pulled off. With Hana out of the way, the escape plan could finally move forward. A few days later, Kiyoshi and Gakuto decided it was time for a test run. With only Mako occasionally checking in, the gaps were big enough to work with. When the coast was clear, Kiyoshi slipped out through the tunnel. But the first thing he saw outside? A random couple strolling together, all lovey-dovey. Jealousy hit him like a brick. He wished that was him and Chiyo. Then things got worse. Kiyoshi ran into none other than the headmaster, who was there on a personal mission, burying his secret stash of plot-heavy art books. The whole ceremony blocked Kiyoshi's way back. Meanwhile, back at the prison, Mako rang the bell and called out for Kiyoshi. Gakuto quickly improvised, saying he was just around the back. Once the headmaster finally finished hiding his collection, Kiyoshi sprinted back toward the tunnel. He dove in, but halfway through his not-so-narrow frame got stuck. As Mako walked over, he froze. It looked like the end. But then, anime luck struck again. Mako slipped on a random wooden plank and hit the ground hard. When she looked up, Kiyoshi was already standing over her, acting like he'd just arrived to help. Suspicious, but seeing nothing out of place, Mako scolded both boys and stormed off. The tunnel was safe. Later, Gakuto proudly told Kiyoshi the plank was actually a trap he had set in advance, just in case, and warned they'd need an even better plan for the real escape day. But they weren't alone. Shingo had been lurking nearby, watching the two whisper to each other. When he tried to get involved, Kiyoshi and Gakuto immediately changed the topic to avoid tipping him off. Suddenly, Mako burst in like an undercover agent, and despite the tension, the boys couldn't help but admire the view. She posted the list of approved item requests. Kiyoshi got a dictionary, Joe got his ant farm, and Gakuto received a tape recorder. Everyone else's requests, for very specific content, were denied without hesitation. Alongside the list, Mako posted the new monthly schedule. Right away, the boys noticed that something strange was marked on the Saturday Kiyoshi had planned to escape. Mako smirked and explained that a special task was planned for that day, away from the shed. And as a bonus twist, Shingo would be teamed up with Kiyoshi and Gakuto. The next day, while Kiyoshi and Gakuto quietly discussed what to do now that Shingo was part of their group, Shingo overheard bits of the conversation from a distance. Unfortunately, he misunderstood everything. From the little he heard, it sounded like they were planning something very intimate involving his backside. Later, Shingo walked into the showers and stumbled onto what looked like a nightmare scenario. Kiyoshi and Gakuto were already inside, and Gakuto had just dropped the soap in front of Kiyoshi. As Kiyoshi bent down to grab it, Shingo peeked in, only to misread the entire situation and nearly pass out from shock. Trying to convince himself it wasn't what it looked like, Shingo peeked again, just as Kiyoshi reached to help a slipping Gakuto and witnessed another moment that would scar him forever. He made a noise without meaning to. Kiyoshi and Gakuto, thinking he had overheard their real escape plan, panicked. They tried to invite him in to talk things out, but Shingo wasn't buying it. He bolted, convinced something very, very wrong was happening. The next day, Mako was working on a project while crouched down when Shingo nervously approached her and asked if, by any chance, he could switch groups for Saturday. Somewhere else on campus, the headmaster was busy burying more of his questionable personal collection. After sealing it under a fresh layer of cement, he proudly declared himself retired from his collector phase. But while walking away, he unknowingly stepped right over the escape tunnel and sealed it for good. Later, when Kiyoshi went to check on the exit, his heart dropped. The entire tunnel was covered in solid concrete. At dinner, he and Gakuto sat silently, processing the disaster. Gakuto immediately started blaming Kiyoshi for not keeping watch. Then he snapped, ranting about how his high school life was now officially ruined. He'd sacrificed everything, dropped a live sound bomb in class, and for what? A blocked tunnel. As the two argued, the others eavesdropped and teased them like they were an old married couple. Mako eventually stormed in and smacked Gakuto so hard it reset his brain. That shut everyone up, briefly, but rumors were already flying. Since Kiyoshi couldn't tell the real story, the boys doubled down on the gossip, convinced Gakuto was now the bottom in their weird imaginary prison romance. That night, Kiyoshi couldn't sleep. Through the thin walls, he could hear Gakuto sobbing, not over pain, but over the betrayal of his dreams and his limited edition figure wish list. The next day, Kiyoshi found Gakuto sulking alone. He swore the escape plan wasn't over. When Gakuto didn't buy it, Kiyoshi revealed his new plan. He would disguise himself as a girl and walk out the front gate. He'd steal a uniform from the girls' laundry room and make it work. That night, Gakuto came up with a plan of his own. During punishment the next morning, he suddenly went wild, touching Mako in ways that would have had the real FBI knocking on the gate. Mako beat him within an inch of his life. But Gakuto wasn't done. Later, when Mari and Mako were walking together, he dodged Mako's attacks like a stunt double and yanked down Mari's skirt in broad daylight. The punishment was instant. Mako suplexed him into the ground and pounded him like a jackhammer. Still, Gakuto lay there proudly, whispering that it was all for the mission. That night, Gakuto tried to apologize to Mako. She responded by putting on rubber gloves, pulling out a strange buzzing device, and making her idea of punishment very clear. When Gakuto returned, he was a different man, literally bald. He handed Kiyoshi a bag of his own shaved hair and told him to use it as a wig for the girl disguise. For the first time, it felt like the plan might actually work. The next day, they moved to Phase 2, stealing a uniform. Kiyoshi slipped into the girls' laundry room using the gutter system while Gakuto distracted the giant bald laundryman by complimenting his shiny head. The man beamed with pride. Meanwhile, Kiyoshi crawled into the delivery truck and searched for a uniform, but got momentarily distracted when he found Mako's iconic purple underwear. Just then, Shingo spotted Gakuto acting suspicious and yanked him away. The laundryman snapped out of it and headed back to work, just as the truck began moving. Kiyoshi panicked. Fortunately, it hit a basket and stopped. As the laundry guy checked the damage, Kiyoshi leaped out with the uniform in hand. That night, Mari confronted Mako, furious over her constant failures. One more mistake, she warned, and there'd be serious consequences. The next morning, Kiyoshi got up early, hiding his disguise under his normal clothes. That day's mission? He and Gakuto had to guard the girls' bags during PE. Gakuto, grinning like a madman, pulled out the voice recorder hidden under his waistband and whispered, "It's go time." Hours later, It was finally happening. Kiyoshi planted the recorder in a toilet stall to create a distraction and slipped into the sewer to escape. After climbing out, he changed into the girl's outfit, but disaster struck. A single strand from the wig floated through the air and landed on Mako's face. Immediately on high alert, Mako started scanning the area. Meanwhile, Kiyoshi was having wardrobe issues. The uniform was way too tight. It tore in all the wrong places. As Mako locked eyes with him, he quickly held his bag in front of the damage, praying she didn't see through the disguise. Thankfully, Mako didn't give Kiyoshi a second glance. She just assumed he was some random girl awkwardly carrying a bag. Crisis averted. Kiyoshi made it all the way to the school gate, feeling like he'd just pulled off an escape worthy of Eren Yeager himself. But just as his foot crossed the threshold of freedom, a hand grabbed him from behind. It was Mari. Kiyoshi froze, certain the game was up, but Mari simply scolded him for wearing his bag weirdly. He stayed quiet while she adjusted it for him. When she noticed the torn uniform underneath, she hurriedly repositioned the bag and apologized for nearly embarrassing what she thought was a stylishly dressed girl. With her gone, Kiyoshi raced off to the meeting spot, and there was Chiyo waiting patiently. Noticing how sweaty he was, Chiyo handed him a towel. Kiyoshi melted inside as he wiped his face, feeling like he was finally living the dream. Then Chiyo grabbed his hand and pulled him along, excited to catch the sumo match. They laid out a picnic, and Chiyo offered him some homemade rice balls. They tasted awful, but Kiyoshi happily ate them anyway, grateful just to be with her. Meanwhile, back at school, Mako started getting suspicious about Kiyoshi's absence. She cornered Gakuto and demanded answers. Thinking fast, Gakuto told her Kiyoshi was still in the bathroom. Mako, unconvinced, marched toward the toilets. But Gakuto was ready. He pressed play on his recorder, blasting sounds that made it seem like Kiyoshi was locked in a brutal battle with his digestive system. Mako cringed and backed off, assuming Kiyoshi was still occupied. Back on the date, Chiyo asked if they could take a photo together. Kiyoshi happily agreed, feeling like they were finally becoming a real couple. But just as they posed, his stomach made an ominous noise. He quickly excused himself and rushed to the restroom. While he was gone, Chiyo accidentally spilled tea onto his bag. Curious, she peeked inside and found a girl's blazer. When Kiyoshi returned, Chiyo's expression had completely changed. She called him disgusting and stormed off without another word. Kiyoshi sat there stunned, not understanding what just happened, until he checked his bag and realized the awful truth. The blazer he'd stolen belonged to Chiyo. He was devastated. Crushed, Kiyoshi wandered to the train station feeling like he'd lost everything. Meanwhile, at school, Shingo asked where Kiyoshi was. Gakuto tried to block him from going to the toilets, but Mako appeared and kicked both of them aside. She stormed into the bathroom, calling Kiyoshi's name. No response. Gakuto scrambled to hit the sound button again. Nothing. Mako kicked open the stall door. She stormed into the bathroom, calling Kiyoshi's name. No response. Gakuto scrambled to hit the sound button again. Nothing. Mako kicked open the stall door and found Kiyoshi curled up, crying his heart out. Assuming it was another hemorrhoid episode, she left him alone. Gakuto tried to lighten the mood by joking that Kiyoshi must be crying over the figurines he didn't get. Kiyoshi silently pulled them out. Gakuto, eyes sparkling, quickly hid them before anyone else saw. Kiyoshi tried to explain everything, but Gakuto didn't want to hear it. As they left the restroom, Mari appeared and dropped a bombshell. She already knew Kiyoshi was the girl she caught at the gate. Kiyoshi tried to play dumb, but Mari showed him a photo from Chiyo, revealing that Chiyo was her younger sister. Mako dug through his bag and pulled out the wig and blazer, confirming it was Chiyo's. Both girls were disgusted. Shingo punched Kiyoshi in the gut, furious that his selfish plan got all their sentences extended. Andre held Shingo back, leaving Kiyoshi on the ground, humiliated and alone. Later, Mako tossed him into a dark room. Mari and Mako grilled him about the escape plan. Kiyoshi took full responsibility, insisting Gakuto had nothing to do with it. The girls seemed to believe him. When they brought up the blazer, he swore it was an accident and that he never had any bad intentions. The next day, the underground student council assembled the boys to announce their punishment. While everyone else got an extra month in prison, Kiyoshi got hit with something worse: expulsion. Afterward, Gakuto tried to rally the group, saying they should stand up for Kiyoshi. He even asked Shingo to back him up. But Shingo coldly shut it down. He said Kiyoshi never trusted them with his plan, so if anyone broke the bond, it was him. Later, Mako pulled Mari aside, expressing doubts about the expulsion. Technically, they didn't have the power to kick anyone out. Mari showed her a document that shut her up. They were going to make Kiyoshi sign his own withdrawal papers. Meanwhile, Chiyo was having lunch with her friends, still upset. She regretted calling Kiyoshi a creep without hearing his side. Then she overheard some girls gossiping about a boy who got expelled for dressing like a girl. That didn't sit right with her. Soon after, the council dragged Kiyoshi into their office and slammed a form in front of him, telling him to sign and drop out. Mari made it sound like the kindest option, promising that staying would only lead to more shame. Kiyoshi lifted the pen, but before he could sign, Chiyo burst in, yelling for him to stop. She stood up for him, declaring it was her who asked him out, and if Kiyoshi was being expelled, then she should be too. Mako smacked Kiyoshi for the chaos, but Chiyo pulled him into a comforting hug. The sisters argued, but Chiyo made her point. Kiyoshi had saved a baby crow, proving he had a kind heart. That made Mari pause. She shoved a different form at him and told him to sign it instead. But Kiyoshi, fueled by Chiyo's defense, said no. He'd serve his time, fair and square. Mari, annoyed but defeated, told him to get out. Chiyo warned them not to pull any more stunts or she'd leave the school herself. As Mako escorted him back to his cell, Kiyoshi couldn't stop thinking about how soft Chiyo's hug was. But that bliss faded fast when he returned. The boys, except Gakuto, treated him like trash, casting him out. Back in the girls' locker room, Mari told Mako she was done playing games. It wasn't just Kiyoshi anymore, she wanted all the boys gone. Mako, fully on board, began drafting their master plan, a hit list of every boy's biggest weakness. Joe's obsession with ants, Andre's secret diary full of weird fantasies, no one was safe. A few days later, the boys were split into two groups. One was assigned to clean the toilets, the other to handle the storage room. Gakuto tried to stick with Kiyoshi for toilet duty, but Shingo forced him into the storage group, leaving Kiyoshi scrubbing solo. As he cleaned, he noticed someone was still inside a stall. He waited, and out stepped Hana. Caught off guard, Kiyoshi tried to keep his head down, but Hana cornered him and whispered that next time her tank was full, she'd return the favor, promising a very awkward payback. Afterward, Hana rejoined the other girls, where Mari briefed her about their new plan, expelling all the boys from school. Hana pointed out how isolated Kiyoshi had become, with Shingo playing the lead in his social exile. That gave them an idea. Shingo would make a perfect inside man. Later, Mako called Shingo aside for a private chat. She began by devouring a slice of creamy cake, then offered Shingo a piece. He inhaled it like it was his last meal. Mako then offered him a role, become their undercover informant. Meanwhile, Kiyoshi tried to assure Gakuto that he was fine being alone. Before Gakuto could respond, Shingo walked in, and the guilt crushed Gakuto so hard that he quietly slipped out and broke down in tears outside. The next morning, as the boys crossed paths with a group of girls, Mako smacked every one of them, except Shingo and Andre. Suspicious, Andre accidentally knocked over Joe's beloved ant farm, sparking chaos. While everyone scrambled, Shingo picked up a few interesting details amid the mess. Later, during Hot Pot, Mako tempted Shingo with delicious meat in exchange for intel. Shingo spilled what he knew, including Joe's deep emotional attachment to his ants. That day, while the boys were outside, Kiyoshi remained the social outcast. Joe, busy pampering his ant farm, eventually dozed off. When Kiyoshi woke up, he saw Shingo sneaking off to meet Mako. Right after, Shingo called Joe over for a quick distraction. Once Joe moved away from the ants, one of Mari's crows swooped down and attacked the farm. Joe panicked, trying to save his colony, but Mako stopped him. Desperate, Joe pushed her aside. Hana immediately kicked him to the ground. Mari then scolded Joe in front of the entire school for hurting Mako over some bugs. Furious and humiliated, Joe grabbed a sharp stick and lunged at Mari. Kiyoshi rushed in and tackled Joe to stop him, but in the chaos, Kiyoshi ended up impaled in the worst possible place. Everyone went silent. Somehow, Kiyoshi stood back up, acting like nothing happened. Mari, trying to control the narrative, claimed Joe attacked Kiyoshi, but Kiyoshi calmly said it was just a splinter and that any blood was from his recurring issue. To wrap things up, Mari ordered Joe into solitary confinement. Meanwhile, Hana offered to take Kiyoshi to the infirmary. Joe, locked in solitary, was stunned when the council returned, with all his ants alive and well. Mari explained that crows sometimes roll in ants as a natural bug repellent. Joe had misunderstood everything. Even so, Mari said he still had to be punished for attacking someone. In the infirmary, Hana handed Kiyoshi some ointment and told him to apply it to his injury. But as he dropped his pants to do it, Hana barged in and demanded he pee for her. When Kiyoshi refused, she tried wrestling it out of him. When that failed, she offered to repay him by doing it herself, on his back. Just as things were about to get bizarre, Chiyo walked in. Panicking, Kiyoshi and Hana dove under the bed. As Chiyo searched, things only got worse under the cramped space. Hana realized Kiyoshi was, let's just say, tense. After Chiyo finally left, Kiyoshi apologized, only to see Hana passed out beside him with suspicious cream all over her. He wasn't sure what just happened. Meanwhile, Shingo was helping Meiko with sit-ups while sneakily admiring her. He admitted he wasn't sure about being their informant anymore. Meiko quickly shut that down. If he bailed, she'd tell the others about his betrayal. His options were clear: keep spying or be exposed. The next day, while the boys were working, Kiyoshi noticed Hana watching him, but she didn't seem to remember what happened under the bed. During break, Shingo tried acting tough again and ordered Kiyoshi to fetch a kettle. Before Kiyoshi could move, Joe stepped in and told Shingo to cut it out. Shingo almost fired back but held his tongue, weighed down by guilt. Meiko then called Shingo away again. Joe handed Kiyoshi a drink and thanked him for stopping him from going to actual jail. They laughed it off like old friends. But as they chatted, Kiyoshi recalled how the entire council had been nearby during the ant incident and remembered seeing Shingo talking to Meiko. Meanwhile, Meiko surprised Shingo with his full school uniform and rewarded him with 2 hours of freedom outside. His only task? Bring back root beer. Shingo hit the streets, stopped by the arcade, and lost a game of Tekken. The girl who beat him, Anzu, recognized him. They hit it off quickly, and before her friends dragged her away, she gave him a hair tie and told him to tie it on the prison fence next time he was free so they could meet again. Back at school, Gakuto was in the bathroom begging his anime figures for forgiveness. One sword snapped mid-breakdown. Later, Shingo returned with Meiko's root beer, but it exploded all over her. Drenched and sticky, Meiko was furious. In the bathroom, Shingo found the broken sword and picked it up, clueless. Later, he tried to bribe Meiko for some chicken by offering the sword. Once she realized where it had been, she threw it, right into the food prep. Gakuto, devastated, had no idea his broken figure was now in the council's hands. Later, during snacks, Meiko handed Gakuto the same toy sword. He froze. Then she pulled out the full figure and accused him of aiding Kiyoshi's escape. Gakuto tried to stay strong, but Meiko made things worse by sitting directly on the toy. Instead of cracking, Gakuto grabbed the figure and crushed it, claiming it wasn't his. Then he walked away, barely holding back tears. Kiyoshi comforted him as best as he could, knowing his tears weren't for the toy, but for all the guilt he carried. Back in the council room, Mari bit into a snack and bit down on something hard, the sword. Realizing it had been in the bathroom, she fainted from pure horror, mumbling about how her breath would never recover. Later, Meiko begged Mari for punishment, desperate to be disciplined, but Mari coldly brushed her off. The rejection only made Meiko thirstier for consequences. Meanwhile, Gakuto gathered the boys and finally confessed that he had helped Kiyoshi. Shingo tried to act superior, suggesting they all treat Gakuto like dirt. But Andre and Joe disagreed. Since no punishment was officially given, and Gakuto had destroyed something he loved to protect them, they respected him even more. Trying to stir trouble, Shingo claimed Gakuto was just playing with toys in the bathroom. But when asked how he knew that, Shingo panicked and walked off, sweating bullets. Later, Mako knelt in front of Mari begging for discipline again when Hana handed her a package. The next day, the boys were stunned. Mako appeared in a full-body uniform that covered everything. Andre, still obsessed, tried misbehaving to get punished, but Mako ignored him completely, targeting the others instead. Poor Andre was left crushed and craving attention. Unfortunately, the tight outfit made Mako overheat the next day. She nearly passed out, but Chiyo caught her just in time and brought her back to the council room. While helping her cool off, Chiyo noticed a book on the table, a document detailing the council's plan to expel every boy from school. Just then, Mari walked in and Chiyo had to quickly pull herself together, pretending like nothing had happened before dashing out. Meanwhile, Andre was suffering from serious punishment withdrawal. He poured his heart out in his diary, missing Mako's strict treatment more than anything. But what he didn't know was that Mari had been secretly reading his diary the whole time, planning to use his own words to trigger her final move to get all the boys expelled. Outside the door, Chiyo was quietly eavesdropping and caught every word. A few days later, Andre was completely drained, barely holding it together after going so long without a single punishment. Meanwhile, Shingo had earned another trip outside and left Anzu's hair tie on the prison barricade as a sign for her. Back inside, Kiyoshi couldn't shake the feeling that something shady was going on, and he had a hunch that Shingo was involved. Just as he was about to confront him, Mako called Shingo away for another errand. While Shingo was off enjoying a movie date with Anzu and silently thanking the universe for his good luck, things at school took a weird turn. As the boys were walking, they spotted Chiyo sitting casually playing a board game. But Kiyoshi noticed she was secretly trying to pass him a message. Later in the shower, Kiyoshi was racking his brain trying to decode the message, but his brain wasn't quite up for the challenge. Meanwhile, Andre, desperate and hallucinating, thought he heard Mako calling to him, promising sweet, sweet discipline. Following the voice, he stumbled upon what he thought was Mako, but it was just a cardboard cutout. Confused, Andre saw a door open nearby and inside found his diary waiting for him. As he read it, he realized the pages described everything he had just experienced, from the cutout to the diary. The final entry said Mako would be waiting outside to punish him. Driven by pure desperation, Andre ran out, and sure enough, there she was, Mako, standing there with her whip, ready to give him the discipline he craved. Back inside, Kiyoshi gathered Gakuto and Joe to tell them about Chiyo's secret warning. He wrote the message out on the window for them. While Kiyoshi couldn't make heads or tails of it, Gakuto quickly cracked the code. It was a warning. The underground student council was planning to expel them all. Realizing they needed to find Andre, Kiyoshi ran off to track him down while Gakuto and Joe came across the Mako cutout. Meanwhile, Mako was luring Andre deeper outside, taunting him and practically bursting out of her clothes with plot, driving Andre even more insane. Completely entranced, Andre charged, only to get caught in barbed wire. But even that didn't stop him. The others rushed to stop him, begging him to turn back. But it was too late. Andre broke through the trap. As Mako unleashed a brutal beatdown on him, Andre had officially crossed the boundary line, just like Kiyoshi had done before. Hana swooped in and restrained him. That's when it all clicked for Kiyoshi. Mari had set this whole thing up. Now she just needed one more incident, and she was counting on Shingo to complete the set. Meanwhile, Shingo was enjoying a peaceful date with Anzu at the park after their movie. She playfully pinched his cheek, and for a second Shingo felt the urge to kiss her. But looking like a mess without his usual polish, he hesitated. Anzu laughed and told him to pinch her cheek too, which instantly sent Shingo's imagination into places it didn't belong. Suddenly, Shingo spotted a kid getting bullied nearby. He jumped in and scared the bullies off. But afterward, guilt hit him hard. He realized how terribly he had treated Kiyoshi back at school. Overwhelmed, he confessed everything to Anzu. To his shock, Anzu burst into tears. When he asked what was wrong, she revealed a secret of her own. Weeks ago, Mari had approached her with a deal. Get close to Shingo and make him fall for her. Even worse, her real job that day was to keep him distracted past 6:30 p.m., the moment that would officially count as a prison break. Panicking, Shingo checked his watch. He thought he had time. But Anzu tearfully admitted that she had secretly turned his watch back 30 minutes during the movie. Realizing he had less than 5 minutes to get back before everyone was expelled, Shingo took off running, with everything on the line. Out of nowhere, Shingo got hit by a car. Meanwhile, back at school, the boys were on their knees in front of Mako, who told them that if they had stayed in line, they would have been transferred to a seaside school, a place legendary for beach fun and wet t-shirt contests. Horrified, they all screamed Shingo's name, hoping he'd make it back in time to save their tropical dream. Back with Shingo, he realized the car that hit him belonged to the bald laundry guy. Desperate, he begged the man to help, and the guy floored it back to school. Shingo arrived just 1 minute before the deadline, stunning the entire council. But then disaster struck. 10 seconds before the cutoff, Shingo tried to open the school gate but fumbled with it. He couldn't figure out how it worked, and the clock ran out. That was it. He was officially counted as an escapee, and now all the boys were set to be expelled. Trying to fight back, Shingo accused them of locking him out on purpose, but Mako smugly explained that it was just a rolling door. He simply didn't know how to open it. The next day, Shingo apologized to the group. He admitted that he had judged Kiyoshi unfairly and ended up doing the same thing himself. Wanting to make things right, he told Kiyoshi to hit him if that would even things out. Kiyoshi gave him a light tap instead, forgiving him and saying they were all at fault in their own way. The boys accepted his apology, and Shingo broke down in tears of relief. However, the moment Shingo started gushing about Anzu and their cheek-pinching moment, Kiyoshi lost it and punched him for real. The rest of the boys jumped in and gave him a well-deserved group smackdown. Later, the boys were brought before the headmaster. Chiyo tried her best to defend them, but without proof of the council's behind-the-scenes plotting, she couldn't expose the expulsion scheme. After she left, Mari pressured the headmaster to officially expel the rowdy boys. Backed into a corner, he reluctantly signed off on it. The underground student council celebrated their win, with Mako showing off her excitement by doing pull-ups. But just as things were getting festive, Anzu suddenly barged in, confessing that she had helped Shingo and revealing the truth about her involvement. Despite the confession, since the expulsion plan still succeeded, the council dismissed her and kicked her out, though Mari decided they'd better keep an eye on her just in case. Meanwhile, the boys were down and defeated, but Kiyoshi wasn't ready to give up. He rallied the team and declared that they needed to get their hands on the incriminating document. That's when Shingo remembered something. He'd seen the file stored on a computer in the correction room. They were worried it might have been deleted, but Gakuto, claiming he was a tech genius, promised he could recover it. Just then, Mako arrived with their lunch trays, and in a twist of fate, accidentally dropped her undergarments on the floor. As she bent down to pick them up, Kiyoshi dropped his chopstick and caught a glimpse that fired up his determination like never before. Once Mako left, Kiyoshi stood tall and got the boys hyped. He told them they had to retrieve that data, for truth, for freedom, and yes, for the dream of that beach school and Mako's unforgettable presentation. They spent the next few days brainstorming every possible way to break into the correction room, but nothing clicked. Things only got worse when Mako announced that all they needed now was the chairman's signature to finalize the expulsion. Cornered and desperate, Gakuto proposed a daring plan. They'd steal the prison keys straight from Mako herself. The boys seriously doubted they could stand a chance against Mako, considering her absurd strength and, well, overpowering presence. But Gakuto had a plan. Later, when Mako approached their cell, she saw the boys hyping up an intense arm wrestling tournament, bragging that even Andre could take her down. Mako immediately took the bait and challenged Andre on the spot. Before she could face Andre, Gakuto stepped up as the first challenger, deliberately flaunting his weak, noodle-like arms to bait her further. Unsurprisingly, Mako crushed him without even blinking. Next up, Kiyoshi jumped in to face her. As they locked arms, Kiyoshi gave it his all, hanging on with pure stubbornness. Just when Mako was about to slam his hand down, Shingo accidentally bumped the table, making them both tumble over. Amid the chaos, Gakuto managed to snag the prison keys from Mako and quietly slipped away toward the correction room. Now holding the keys, Gakuto needed around 10 minutes to recover the deleted file. To buy him time, Kiyoshi challenged Mako to a rematch, this time on a more stable table. Kiyoshi did slightly better, but Mako, done playing around, ramped up the power. Within seconds, she flattened him, which, honestly, was still longer than most guys would probably last facing off with Mako in any situation. With just 9 minutes left on the clock, Shingo stepped in, trying to stall. He tried to mess with her by hyping up his fingers as the Finger Blaster 5000, talking nonsense. Mako wasn't impressed. She told him to zip it and wrestle. Shingo didn't even last a second, barely earning Gakuto an extra 30 seconds. Then Joe stepped up. When he flexed his so-called muscles, Mako stared in disbelief at how laughably thin he looked. The moment they locked hands, Joe went flying across the room like a feather in a windstorm. Finally, it was Andre's turn, their last and best hope. Mako took off her jacket, ready to go full force. Andre just needed to survive 7 minutes. As they squared off, Mako spotted something unsettling, a lone hair sticking out of Andre's stomach. The sight completely threw her concentration. Every time she tried to focus, her eyes wandered back to that sad little hair, like a tree in a desert wasteland. This bizarre distraction gave Andre the upper hand and bought Gakuto precious minutes. Furious, Mako tried to snap him out of it with insults and trash talk, but all it did was feed Andre's weird fantasies, making him stronger. With just 2 minutes left, Mako couldn't take it anymore. She shut her eyes tight to avoid the cursed view and in one powerful motion slammed Andre's hand down. He screamed in unsettling joy, even in defeat. The boys had 1 minute left. It seemed hopeless. As Mako slipped her jacket back on, she noticed her keys were missing. Turning quickly, she spotted Gakuto nearby, casually pretending to pick them up off the floor. She bought the act and walked off, none the wiser. The boys exploded in celebration, thinking they'd actually pulled it off. But then Gakuto's smile faded. When they asked what was wrong, he broke the bad news. Just as he was about to recover the file, he heard Andre's ridiculous noises and panicked. He had to abandon the mission to cover up the stolen keys and didn't finish retrieving the data. After all their effort, they had lost their one shot. That night, a mix of disappointment and quiet acceptance filled the cell. One by one, the boys silently cried themselves to sleep. The next morning, the mood was even worse, especially when they found Gakuto sitting in a corner, squatting like a wild man, singing Kanye songs while losing control of his bowels. With just 1 day left before their expulsion, Mako arrived with their meals and asked them what they wanted for their last supper. Most gave regular requests, but Gakuto strangely asked for fried grasshoppers. Andre, true to form, requested a soup made with Mako's affections, which, thankfully, she ignored. As Kiyoshi bit into his bread, he found a tiny note tucked inside from Chiyo, asking for any updates. With nothing good to say, he simply wrote back, "Goodbye." Later, Mako returned with their requested meals. Everyone started eating, except Gakuto, who instantly began choking on his grasshoppers. They tasted like something scraped off your dad's old gym socks, but weirdly, the grossness snapped Gakuto back to normal. He didn't even remember asking for bugs, or how many days had passed since he'd lost his mind. Suddenly alert, he turned to the others and declared he had a new plan. Chiyo's message had reminded him there might still be a shot. Fired up, he explained it all. But the others just blinked at him in silence. When he asked why they weren't excited, they told him the bad news. While he'd been busy having a mental breakdown, 2 full days had already gone by. Right then, Mako walked in holding a stack of documents. She announced it was time. The boys had to fill them out and sign off on their own resignation. But Kiyoshi saw a chance. Instead of going down quietly, he suggested they use those same forms to write an official appeal, hoping to buy themselves a little extra time to uncover real evidence and prove they were being set up. Shingo was skeptical, but Kiyoshi hit him where it hurt, reminding him of the legendary Seaside School and the even more legendary wet t-shirt contests. Just hearing that stirred Shingo's spirit, and suddenly, he was ready to fight. Together, they poured their hearts into that appeal letter and handed it to Mako, pleading for her to pass it on to the chairman. Mako took it with a smug grin, fully convinced it wouldn't make a difference. But as she left the cell, her eyes landed on Gakuto's half-eaten grasshoppers, and she fumed. How dare he not finish the bugs she painstakingly caught herself? The next day, the boys sat in pure torment, waiting for the chairman to arrive and read their appeal. But instead of the chairman, Mako showed up, and she wasn't there for conversation. She told them it was time to head out for their official expulsion. As they trudged toward their fate, Gakuto noticed something that broke his heart. Their appeal letter had been torn to pieces and was lying in the dirt. Mako had destroyed it. When Gakuto tried to protest, she didn't hesitate. She beat him down on the spot. Meanwhile, in a cooking class, Hana was chopping mushrooms. As she held one in her hand, something inside her snapped. She dropped it under the table and bent down to pick it up, only for another mushroom to fall perfectly between her legs. The pose triggered a memory she had been trying to forget. The moment Kiyoshi's dingling had been in the exact same position. Her eyes widened, and just like that, the flames of revenge reignited. Back on the staircase of doom, the boys were being marched to their final destination. Just as Mari prepared to seal their expulsion, the unexpected happened. The chairman himself showed up. The girls froze in panic as he demanded a private conversation with the boys. Mako was stunned, and the boys were led back to their cell. Once inside, Mako scrambled to figure out how their appeal even got through. That's when Kiyoshi dropped the bomb. When they handed her the fake appeal letter, he had hidden the real one inside his resignation papers, banking on her not bothering to double-check. But the twist didn't stop there. That appeal wasn't just a plea, it was blackmail. Kiyoshi had written that unless the chairman heard them out, he would expose the location of the chairman's secret stash of buried treasures, hidden just outside the school grounds. Cornered, the chairman asked what they wanted. Their demand was simple: more time to find evidence. Before responding, the chairman asked one critical question. The question he asked all who sought his favor. Melons or rice cakes? Gakuto nearly blurted out melons in excitement, but Kiyoshi quickly cut him off. He took a deep breath, thought carefully, and remembered the one detail that mattered: the chairman's well-known obsession with rice cakes. So, with full confidence, Kiyoshi replied, "Rice cakes." The chairman was impressed. He declared that no man who favored cheeks over melons could possibly be a bad person, but he wasn't satisfied just yet. He demanded Kiyoshi explain why he made that choice. Meanwhile, just outside, Mako tried to eavesdrop. But before she could gather anything useful, Hana burst in wielding a knife, fully intent on chopping off Kiyoshi's, well, gizmo. Fortunately, Mako managed to knock Hana out cold before she could do anything rash. Back inside, Kiyoshi activated his full bird brain mode and delivered a passionate, history-rich speech. He explained that back when humans were still crawling on all fours, the only thing visible was the rice cakes behind. It was only when humanity stood upright that melons came into view, making them nothing more than flashy, late-arriving imposters. The chairman was moved to tears. He threw his arms around Kiyoshi and declared him a true connoisseur of cheeks. Deeply touched by Kiyoshi's reasoning, the chairman granted the boys a one-day delay on their expulsion. After stepping out, the chairman clashed with Mari over his decision. But he stood his ground, leaving her frustrated and defeated. For the first time in what felt like forever, the boys saw a flicker of hope, one last chance at freedom. They swore not to waste it. Meanwhile, the girls fumed over the chairman's decision. Still burning for payback, Hana requested to oversee the boys' final day. Mako instantly objected, especially after Hana's earlier meltdown, but Hana promised to stay in control. Back in the cell, the boys regrouped and began planning their next move. Their strategy was simple: get Chiyo involved to sneak them help, distract Mako again with another over-the-top challenge, and use that window to retrieve the hidden data. Gakuto even suggested that Andre challenge Mako to a rice cake wrestling match, to buy them more time. Andre, already in a daze just thinking about it, was more than ready to dive face-first into Mako's plot. But their hopes were crushed when Hana arrived instead, announcing she'd be in charge for the night. Trying to stay cool, Gakuto offered her the same rice cake challenge, but Hana wasn't buying it. Without warning, she drop-kicked him straight into the wall, sending a very loud and painful message. They were doomed. As she handed out dinner, Hana paused when she got to Kiyoshi. She leaned in close and whispered that she remembered everything, and warned him she'd take revenge on his mushroom. Elsewhere, Mako sat in her room doing intense workouts, still seething over being replaced. That's when Mari walked in. Mako immediately apologized, but Mari reassured her. She had never doubted Mako's loyalty. She explained that putting Hana in charge wasn't punishment. It was part of the plan to catch the boys off guard. Still, Mari gave Mako one final secret mission. Stay on alert and quietly block any suspicious activity. She suspected the boys were plotting something big. Back in the cell, Kiyoshi made a decision. He would be the one to go for the data. The others were confused, asking why. Kiyoshi explained that Hana had a personal grudge against him, but he didn't share the why. After dinner, Chiyo made her move. She volunteered to return the dirty dishes to the kitchen, and once alone opened a secret note Kiyoshi had hidden among the plates. The plan was going down tonight, but before she could move, someone else appeared behind her. It was Anzu. She revealed that she too had come to help the boys avoid expulsion. Later that night, Kiyoshi and Joe launched the first phase. Kiyoshi lightly stabbed Gakuto in the head to fake an injury, but it wasn't convincing. So Joe upped the ante with a more painful poke, making Gakuto scream loud enough to draw Hana's attention. Kiyoshi begged her to let him escort Gakuto to the correction room for treatment. But Hana, cold and unbothered, brushed it off. It was just a little bump, not worth her time. Thinking fast, Gakuto pulled through. He began shouting accusations at Kiyoshi, demanding he confess what he had done to Hana, loud enough for Hana to hear. She took the bait. Without hesitation, she dragged both Kiyoshi and Gakuto to the correction room. There, she quickly patched Gakuto up, but told Kiyoshi to stay behind. Claiming she needed privacy, she stared him down, making it very clear. This was personal. That night, Chiyo and Anzu were both on standby, ready to do their part in the mission. Mako, meanwhile, was dressed in her tightest uniform, squeezed in like your mom trying to fit into her old high school jeans, determined to catch any funny business. Back in the correction room, Hana pulled out a pair of scissors, making Kiyoshi let out a nervous squeak for the safety of his, delicate regions. But instead of cutting anything important, she casually opened a bottle and demanded that he pee into it. Kiyoshi, relieved, played along. To keep the act going, he boldly dropped his pants and stood there with the confidence of a warrior, completely unbothered. The boldness froze Hana for a moment. Then Kiyoshi handed her the bottle, claiming he needed both hands free to strike a powerful pose while relieving himself. Not one to be outshined in this chaotic battle of wills, Hana snapped. She pulled her own pants down, yelling that she'd be the one to mark him instead, refusing to lose to someone she considered her rival in madness. As the tension grew, Kiyoshi remembered all his friend's efforts to get him this far. He pushed forward, cornering Hana against the door, ready to escape and carry out the next part of the plan. Just as he managed to crack the door open, Hana kicked him. But too late. The door was already unlocked, but then disaster struck. Kiyoshi looked up and locked eyes with Hana's most private territory, instantly turning his confident stand into a defeated droop. He panicked, stammering that there was no way he could go while feeling this awkward. Hana didn't care. Instead, she decided it was the perfect time to begin her golden payback. Just then, outside the room, Mako's voice thundered. She had caught someone sneaking around. Kiyoshi's heart dropped, thinking Chiyo had been found out. But it wasn't Chiyo. It was Anzu. She had sacrificed herself on purpose, telling Chiyo to keep going while she created a distraction. When Mako tried to get into the correction room, Hana, desperate to hide what was going on, slammed the door shut and locked it again. Inside, Kiyoshi had accidentally looked up once more, straight into the same horrifying view. He quickly apologized, but the damage was done. Hana, now completely emotionally wrecked, humiliated from being splashed, mocked, and having her pride repeatedly stomped on, broke down in rage. She started hitting Kiyoshi in frustration, then suddenly kissed him, stealing his first kiss out of pure spite. Kiyoshi was left frozen. Hana laughed bitterly, saying she'd make sure to take all his firsts so that Chiyo never would. Then she kissed him again, and again. Kiyoshi tried to resist, but Hana pushed him into a corner, hitting and kissing him like a twisted punishment session. Outside, Chiyo waited for the moment the door would open. When the lights inside flicked off, it was her signal. Time to move. Inside, Hana was still clinging to Kiyoshi, but something felt off. Her kisses weren't wild or frenzied like he expected. They were soft, romantic, like something out of a cheesy love drama. Realizing that passive resistance wasn't going to cut it, Kiyoshi made a bold decision. He fought back with a kiss of his own, one more passionate than hers. The sudden reversal short-circuited Hana's brain. Her body trembled, and her nose even burst into a cartoonish nosebleed as she stood dazed, overwhelmed by what just happened. At that moment, Chiyo peeked through the tiny window but only saw Kiyoshi's upper half in the dark, missing the chaos below. Kiyoshi unlocked the door, giving her the go signal, but then, realizing the room still looked wildly suspicious, he panicked and whispered, "Not yet," stopping her just in time. That whisper also snapped Hana out of her trance. Dizzy and embarrassed, she muttered that she just wanted to go home. Finally, with the lights off and Hana zoned out, Chiyo slipped quietly into the room. Meanwhile, Meiko was in interrogation mode, grilling Anzu. When Anzu refused to talk, Meiko escalated, trying to smother her into submission using her intimidation tactics. Anzu, enduring the full force of Meiko's overbearing presence, still refused to give in. Surprised by her determination, Meiko started to wonder if maybe Anzu was genuinely innocent. That's when Mari entered the room, and Meiko immediately filled her in on everything that had happened so far. After Anzu passed out from the intense interrogation, they decided she probably wasn't involved. Still, Mari wasn't fully convinced and remained cautious. Meanwhile, Hana escorted Kiyoshi back to the cell. As soon as they were alone, Kiyoshi leaned in and whispered to the others. The first part of the plan had worked. At the same time, Hana texted Meiko, letting her know everything was clear and she was heading home. But Mari's gut told her not to relax just yet. She ordered one last check of the prison. While Meiko headed to inspect the bathroom, awkwardly peeling off her skin-tight suit like it was glued on, Mari went to the correction room. There, she found the bottle Kiyoshi had been holding earlier. Feeling the warmth still radiating from it, she narrowed her eyes in suspicion. Before she could dig any deeper, Meiko suddenly let out a scream. Mari rushed to the bathroom, bracing for the worst, but found Meiko in a panic simply because she really needed to pee. Red-faced, Meiko reassured Mari everything was fine and that the boys hadn't pulled anything sneaky. Satisfied, Mari eased up, believing everything was still under control. The next morning, Meiko woke the boys up for what was supposed to be the final time. She led them to face the underground student council and the chairman for their official expulsion. As the chairman began listing out their supposed offenses, the boys stayed silent, keeping their cool. Mari and the others wore smug smiles, savoring what they thought was their victory, but Meiko started feeling strangely uneasy. Something didn't sit right. Meanwhile, chaos was erupting elsewhere in the school. Someone was running around like a maniac, getting tackled and body slammed by girls left and right. Back in the expulsion room, Mari mockingly told the boys goodbye. But then Kiyoshi raised his head, looked her straight in the eyes, and said calmly, "We've already won." The mood flipped instantly. Meiko's instincts went wild. Something was definitely wrong. She marched over to Gakuto and demanded to know who he really was. As he started coughing suspiciously, Meiko ripped off his hoodie. It wasn't Gakuto, it was Joe. The entire council froze, jaws dropped. Before anyone could speak, the doors flew open. Female students marched in, dragging the real Gakuto behind them. He was alive, free, and grinning ear to ear. Once the room settled, Gakuto proudly explained the switcheroo. The night before, he and Joe had swapped places. While everyone thought he was still in his cell, Gakuto had slipped into the correction room and spent the entire night recovering the deleted data without being detected. By the time Mari had come snooping, he was already gone. Mission complete. With a dramatic pause, Gakuto reached into his pocket, not that one, thankfully, and pulled out a bright pink hard drive. He walked straight up to the chairman and handed it over. Every dirty trick and shady move the council had pulled was saved on that pink hard drive. As the chairman calmly reviewed the contents, his face grew grim. He saw everything, from Joe's fake ant farm incident to Shingo's setup with the curfew, all orchestrated by the underground student council. Hana stood in shock, paralyzed with disbelief. As it all clicked, she realized even her most humiliating moments, including the twisted tongue episode and Kiyoshi stealing her first kiss, had been tangled up in the council's schemes. Rage took over, and she lunged at Kiyoshi, ready to unleash her fury. But just before she could strike, Mari stepped in and stopped her. Mari turned to the chairman and took full responsibility. She admitted that every word on the hard drive was true, and that all the blame belonged to her alone, not Mako or Hana. With the truth now out in the open, the chairman made his decision. The council was guilty. The boys were officially cleared of all accusations and declared free. Finally, dressed in crisp blue uniforms, the former prisoners stepped out of the detention block, no longer inmates, but free men. The sun was shining and their heads were held high. In the days that followed, life was good. The boys got to enjoy dates, make new friends, and live the kind of normal school life they had only dreamed of. They had earned their freedom and now they were finally living it. But for the disgraced members of the council, karma hit hard. A higher authority was appointed to dish out their punishment. Their power, titles, and pride were stripped away and they were thrown into the very same prison they once ruled. Clad in the same embarrassing uniforms the boys had worn, they now knew exactly what it felt like to be on the other side. The tables had turned completely, and the boys watched every second of it, satisfied to see justice finally served. The boys survived prison, expulsion, humiliation, and whatever Hana was trying to do. But their greatest challenge? Convincing you to hit that subscribe button. So if you're into wild school punishments, absurd escape plans, and friendships forged in pain and awkward body fluids, stick around. More anime like this is on the way, unfiltered, unhinged, and probably illegal in at least 3 prefectures. Subscribe now, before Mari finds your weakness and adds you to the hit list.